As I see the sign of the horse with a plume on his head appear on the 22nd of November 2002, I saw another sign that appeared. I saw how between the one standing in Israel, in a very cocky way, crowing king, and the blast towards the continent of Asia, I saw many saints that appear in the vision. Then the Lord said to me, as a chick under his wings, that Yahweh, the Lord of Lords, will shelter and protect his people in the wilderness of Zin. I was amazed when I heard these words. I did not even know where the wilderness of Zin was. This was as the Lord has spoken to his prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 16 verse 3, say to the ruler, give counsel, execute justice for Moab, O King of Judah. Make your shade over us like night in the midst of noonday. Hide the outcast, betray not the fugitive to his pursuer. Let our outcast of Moab dwell among you. Be a shelter and a hiding place to them from the destroyer. When the extortion and the extortioners have been brought to naught, and destruction has ceased, and the oppressors and they who trample men are consumed and have vanished out of the land. Yahweh is saying that the prophet Isaiah must pray and intercede for a time when the destroyer will rise up in the land, as we have just seen. That he will cast his shadow of protection over them, hiding them like a chick or an eagle hides his chicks under his wings. And he said that he will hide them in the desert of Zin. He says that he will hide them there from the extortioners until they have been brought to naught, and until the destruction has ceased, until the blessed time, the time, as we have said, of 1,335 days has come to its end, until God has made a human being as rare as gold on the face of the earth. And unless, as Yahweh had prophesied, he had cut this time short, no flesh would have survived. Go up into the mountain of Abarim, and behold the land that I have given to the Israelites. And when you have seen it, you also will be gathered to your departed people, as Aaron your brother was gathered. For you disobeyed my order in the wilderness of Zin during the strife of the congregation, to uphold my sanctity by strict obedience to my authority at the waters before their eyes. These are the waters of Meribah in Kadesh, in the wilderness of Zin. We see that Yahweh had told Moses that he would not enter the promised land, that he would only see it with his eyes. And standing on the mountain, he looked out over the beautiful valley of the Jordan and of Jericho. And Yeshua revealed to him and said that he had disobeyed him in the wilderness of Zin, where he had, instead of commanding the rock, he had struck the rock. Instead of speaking to it, he struck it 3 times in his anger. And this was the very place that Yeshua says that he will go and hide his people, in the same place where Moses had struck the rock, so that it would produce water for them. Where is this place where Moses had struck the rock? On the 22nd of November 2002, we saw a sign of how the saints were caught in the middle of this great war, and they were surrounded by angels protecting them from the destroyer. Then another sign appeared in the heavens, in which the Lord Yeshua by his Spirit showed me how he himself would protect his people from this destroyer. We see that Jerusalem will be surrounded by all her enemies in the last days. And then she will be destroyed. For Yeshua had said, according to Matthew 24 verse 15, when you see the appalling sacrilege, the abomination that astonishes and makes desolate, spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader take notice and ponder and consider and heed this. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetops not come down and go into the house to take anything. And let him who is in the field not turn back to get his overcoat. Alas for the women who are pregnant and for those who have nursing babies in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be a great tribulation, affliction, distress, and oppression, such as not been from the beginning of the world until now. No, never will be again. Yeshua revealed that at a certain time, Jerusalem will be surrounded by her enemies. And then they will come and they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. They will set up a appalling sacrilege inside of the holy place. Now we know that Antiochus Epiphanes IV had actually partially fulfilled this prophecy. Having come from one of the empires of the kingdom of Alexander the Great, he overthrew all the three other empires, and he came finally into Jerusalem, and there he sacrificed a pig in order to desecrate the temple and the altar, so that they would not be able to make any more sacrifices on the altar anymore. But although he has fulfilled this prophecy, we see that about 1,290 years later, the Dome of the Rock was built on the very site where the temple used to stand. The dome was built on this very site in order to prevent the Jews from rebuilding the temple again. But a mistake was made in the calculation of where the temple and the most holy place of the temple is actually situated. And it was built towards the one side which was known as the outer court of the temple. But the holy and the most holy place still remained an open, flat piece of ground where the temple can still be built today. Now Yeshua says, when they do this appalling thing, which will cause the abomination that astonishes and makes desolate to be set up, then those in Judea must flee. They must immediately flee, and they must not go back into their houses. We've already seen what will cause the absolute desolation and destruction, and how a nuclear bomb will be used to destroy the nations that come against Israel and come against the little horn, who will be at that time, or his kingdom will be at that time in Jerusalem, having forcefully taken hold of Jerusalem. Yeshua also revealed that when this happens, they must flee immediately. The question is, where must they flee to? And how will he protect them from this destroyer? We've also seen in the past how when Satan come down, that Yeshua will give the wings of an eagle to the woman that remained after the male child was caught up into heaven. And she will be given the wings of an eagle, and she will be protected for a period of 1,260 days. And the earth will open up, and the earth will swallow up the water that was spewed behind her, trying to swallow her up. So Yeshua will, in an awesome way, protect them under the covering of his canopy and glory. After this sign had appeared to us, we saw another sign that appeared in the heavens. After we had seen how the menorah, which is a symbol of Israel and Jerusalem, will come to a fall, and how those saints who trust in the words of Yeshua and believe the servants and prophets whom Yeshua sent to them, warning them to flee out of Jerusalem, out of Judea, he will protect them in a divine way. And we saw a sign of how God showed us how He will protect the remnant of His people. When the Antichrist will take his position in Israel, as we looked, we saw a sign of a hill that appeared in the heavens. And we saw how God opened up a way between two hills. And we saw how an entire nation of people disappeared between these two hills. What is between these two hills? And is there such a place where Israel can be protected for such a period of time? In the desert of Zin. The desert of Zin, or the wilderness of Zin, is in a geographic area mentioned by the Torah as containing Kadesh Barnea, and within it, it is therefore also referred to as the wilderness of Kadesh. Most scholars, as well as traditional sources, consequently identify the wilderness as being part of the Arabah, or the Wadi Arabah. And we can see in the picture the sunset on the Wadi Arabah. Another name for the desert of Zin is also called the desert of Sin. The very area where the desert of Zin is, there is a city situated between the mountains that are hidden in a cave. And this area, or this city, is called the city of Petra. The city of Petra has a very interesting history. Yahweh had told these people to build refuge cities where people can flee to when they have committed manslaughter, when they have killed a man by accident, not intentionally. We know that the Jews had not accepted Yeshua and has killed them by making use of the Roman Empire, executing him. And they did this unintentionally, not realizing that he was their Messiah. Therefore Yeshua, in his mercy, will allow those who believe his words to them to flee to a city of refuge where no one will be able to harm them, to the city of Petra in the desert of Zin. When I saw this sign, I was also reminded of the word of the Lord to the prophet Isaiah, saying, "Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to the heart of Jerusalem, and cry to her that her time of service and her warfare are ended, that her punishment is accepted, and her iniquity is pardoned, that she has received punishment from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. Prepare in the wilderness the way of the Lord, clear away the obstacles, make straight and smooth in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted and filled up, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked and uneven shall be made straight and level, and the rough places a plain. And the glory, the majesty, and the splendor of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it." Yahweh had revealed to his servant Isaiah that at that time he must speak comfort to his people. He must speak comfort to the heart of the people who used to live in Jerusalem, and cry out to her that her time of service and her warfare are ended, that her punishment will from that time on be accepted, and her iniquity will be pardoned. Yeshua had revealed to us how he will protect his people, and how he will lead them out of Israel at that time, so that they would not be destroyed in this war. And he said he will prepare in the wilderness a highway or a way, and he will take away the obstacles, and he will make every valley, he will lift it up and fill it up, and the high mountains or the hills he will bring and make low, so that his glory and majesty and splendor will be revealed to all the world, and all flesh will see together how he will save his people in a divine way from the hand of the destroyer. Although a multitude will come up from the nations of the east, they will fall backwards. God will rebuke their trust in themselves and will allow them to be wiped out. They will disappear like mist before the sun and like chaff before the wind. Suddenly there will be no more. Then, as I was speaking to Yeshua, I suddenly heard a mighty halting screech, as the force of the east had to suddenly stop in their tracks and fall back and return the way they came. Something made these forces in the east stop in such a powerful way because of fear that they immediately stopped in their tracks and returned from the way they came. After I heard this sound, the Lord showed me how a sign of the menorah falling in the north country of Israel appeared in the heavens. I saw the menorah slightly tilted forward, falling as if on its face. Then the Lord showed us how Israel was attacked out of the air, like swallows diving in upon the ground. We saw an air attack that came on Israel. The word of the Lord came to me according to the prophet Daniel, when he was asked, saying, "How long will it be to the end of these wonders?" Daniel inquired and wanted to know how long his people would be trampled and how long they would be persecuted and how they would be treated with dishonor and they would be shattered. Then I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, and he held out his right hand and his left hand towards heaven, and swore by him who lives for ever and ever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time, or 3 and 1.5 years, when they have made an end of shattering and crushing the power of the holy people. Then all these things shall be finished. So Yeshua will give the city of Jerusalem and the country of Israel over into the hand of those who will trample them for a period of 3.5 years, or as it was revealed to Daniel, a period of time and half a time. In the next seminar, we will look in detail at the awesome time and chronology and how prophecy has been fulfilled and how the shadow picture over a period of 2,500 years will be re-fulfilled in a period of 7 years before Yeshua comes to take his reign on the earth. And it shall come to pass in that day that there shall not be light. The glorious and the bright ones of the heavenly bodies shall be darkened. But it shall be one continuous day known to the Lord, not a day and not night, but at evening there shall be light. The prophet uses a very interesting way of describing the specific day on which these things will happen. He says that the heavenly bodies shall be darkened. We know that as soon as there is a solar eclipse in the sky, then the whole earth becomes dark. He says, but also interesting about this solar eclipse that will appear, at evening there shall be light. So just like in the time of the crucifixion of Jesus, of Yeshua, when in the middle of the day it became dark, but at evening there was light. It will be in that day that living water will go out of Jerusalem, half of them towards the eastern Dead Sea and half of them towards the western Mediterranean Sea. In summer and in winter shall it be. And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day the Lord shall be one in the recognition and worship of men, and his name will be one. We see that something will happen that will dramatically change the entire geographical area of Israel, which will cause water to break forth out of the area of Jerusalem, which will flow from there into the Dead Sea, and the other part will go into the Mediterranean Sea. So we see that there will be an earthquake that will at that time, just like the time of the crucifixion of Yeshua, there will be an earthquake. And this earthquake will be, according to what Zechariah prophesied, will be Yeshua standing on the Mount of Olives now, this time. Not as one who's crucified, but as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, King over all the earth. And at that day, they will recognize. Then the eyes of those who are in Judea will be opened, and they will realize that He is their Messiah. All the land shall turn into a plain from Geba to Rimnon, the Rimnon that is south of Jerusalem. But Jerusalem shall remain lifted up on its site and dwell in its place, from the Benjamin gate to the place of the first gate, to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananiel to the king's winepresses. And it shall be inhabited, for there shall be no more curse or ban of utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall dwell securely. Yahweh revealed that at that time the entire area known as the plain of Geba to Rimnon will become a plain. It will be wiped out. It will be completely, everything that was on that plain will be completely removed because of the dropping of a nuclear bomb, or a thermonuclear bomb, or even a neutron bomb that will destroy all flesh, as we have seen earlier. But Jerusalem, although it will be shaken, it will be lifted up on its site, yet it will still dwell and remain in its place. And from that time on, the curse or the ban of utter destruction that has taken place in Judea, because those in that area had to flee, because the entire area will become a plain, they will, from that time on, Jerusalem will dwell securely. This is an awesome revelation that the prophet Zechariah gives us insight into, which in the next seminar we will reveal to you how Yeshua had revealed to us on the very day that these things happen. There will be a solar eclipse. Just like in the time when Yeshua had died on the cross. On the 22nd of November 2002, we saw another sign that explained the events of the last days and how the attack and the war will take place upon Israel. I saw in the western sky that appeared something like a Viking ship, also looking like an old Japanese ship. Then the word of the Lord came to me, according to the prophet Isaiah, saying in Isaiah 17 verse 11, "And in that day of your planting you hedge it in, and in the morning you make your seed to blossom. Yet promising as it is, the harvest shall be a heap of ruins, and flee away in the day of expected possession, and of desperate sorrow, and sickening and incurable pain. Hark, the uproar of a multitude of peoples. They roar and thunder like the noise of the seas. Oh, the roar of nations. They roar like the roaring of rushing and mighty waters. The nations will rush and roar like the rushing and roaring of many waters. But God will rebuke them, and they will flee far off, and will be chased like chaff on the mountains before the wind, and like rolling thistle down, or whirling dust of the stubble before the storm. At evening time, behold terror, and before the morning they, the terrorizing Assyrians, are not. This is the portion of those who strip us, the Jews, of what belongs to us, and of the lot of those who rob us. Yeshua had shown a sign of a Viking ship, which is a symbol of the area of Norway and of Scandinavia. We see how the attack against Israel will not come through Saudi Arabia, but will come all the way from the north, from the area of Scandinavia against Israel. But Yeshua promises through the prophet Isaiah, saying that this entire army, or this multitude of people that will roar like the noise of the sea, that will be so terrible just to see the amount of armies and the amount of people that are coming up out of the east. Yet God, Yeshua, will blow them away. He says, at evening the terrorizing Assyrians will be no more. The area of Iran and the area of Iraq is the ancient area where the Assyrians used to stay. Here, Yeshua reveals to his prophet that at that time the Assyrians will come up with the Scandinavians or the Russians and with the Chinese, the Eastern nations, and they will be suddenly destroyed. Just like a thistle rolling down before the wind, so they will be chased like chaff on the mountains before the wind. Yeshua will blow them away with the breath of his nostrils and with the glory of his coming.